All right, ready to unpack November 2024.
Let's do it. A whole month's worth of UPSC current affairs all in one deep dive.
Think of us as your personal news filters, pulling out what really matters for your exam prep.
Exactly. We'll connect the dots between events and those UPSC syllabus topics, maybe even anticipate a few potential exam questions.
So, notebooks ready. Let's jump in.
Let's go.
Okay, first up, the Supreme Court. Big judgment on accessibility for people with disabilities.
The Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act, remember that one? The court basically said those accessibility standards, they're not suggestions anymore, they're mandatory.
Interesting. That's a lot of potential changes. What does this mean, practically speaking? Ramps everywhere, sign language interpreters.
Well, it's going to be a process, but think of it like a blueprint now. The government has to make rules to make public spaces, transportation, services all accessible.
So this is a big shift, huge implications for governance in India.
And don't forget, it could be a mains question too, right? How do you implement sweeping changes like this? What are the challenges?
Great point. Okay, let's shift to the economic survey. 2023-24, they found something pretty unexpected when they looked at rural wages.
Oh, yeah, this was interesting. More women are working in rural areas, labor participation's up, but wages haven't really moved.
That doesn't seem right. More people working means higher demand for jobs, wages should go up, basic economics.
Right, but here's what the survey says. Schemes like Ujjwala, that cooking gas initiative, Har Ghar Jal, the water one, Swachh Bharat, all those, they've had this indirect effect.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Go on.
They're not about jobs directly, but they give women more time, better access to resources. So more women can work now.
But then more competition for the same jobs. That would explain the stagnant wages.
Yeah, like a ripple effect. Policies, even with good intentions, got to think about those economic consequences.
Absolutely good lesson there, especially for your economics and social issues prep, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Okay, back to the Supreme Court. Big ruling on Article 39B. That's about distribution of resources.
What happened there?
Okay, so for ages, material resources, the court interpreted that broadly, even private property could be included.
And that was the basis for things like nationalization.
Right, exactly. It all came from a case back in '77, Ranganatha Reddy v. Andhra Pradesh. But this new judgment, it narrows that definition way down.
So the state doesn't have that unlimited power over private property anymore.
Nope. Individual rights getting more emphasis here, higher bar for government intervention. Big implications, think about it, for your GSB prep.
Makes you think how one judgment can shift the balance of power. Fascinating. Okay, another SC ruling. This one clarified how an institution gets minority status. Impacted Aligarh Muslim University, AMU, right?
Yep, that's the one. Now there's a two-part test. First, look back at history. How was the institution founded? What was its purpose? Then look at who's running it now.
So it's not just about the people in charge today, it's about the institution's DNA from the start.
Exactly. And they made it clear a minority institution doesn't need an all-minority staff, just to be clear.
Interesting. Okay, this next one hits closer to home for all those UPSC aspirants out there. New guidelines to combat those misleading coaching center ads.
Oh, yeah, you know the ones. Ranks and promises, all that jazz.
I've seen a few, that's for sure.
Well, now things need to be transparent. What courses they offer, the fees, qualifications of faculty, all that up front.
Makes sense. Level the playing field a bit.
And no more random student testimonials without consent. Gotta have disclaimers. Protect students, don't mislead them.
Good move. Okay, this next one's a bit of a reality check. The CAG audit report revealed some serious issues with how urban local bodies are doing.
Yeah, the CAG looked at 18 states, ULBs struggling financially, not enough staff. Sometimes the state government's even overstepping its boundaries.
So you've got ULBs that can't raise enough money, short-staffed, and then sometimes they can't even make their own decisions.
It's a tough situation. The CAG even had some recommendations, give more power to ULBs, get citizens more involved.
Urban governance, that's core GSI stuff right there.
Oh, yeah, big time. Okay, let's talk environment. Water Act 2024 went through some changes, pretty significant.
I'm moving the takeaway.
Jail time's not the go-to punishment for violations anymore. Now it's penalties, fines, 10,000 rupees, up to 15 lakhs, depends how bad the violation is.
Interesting. So focus on actually fixing the damage, not just punishing people.
That's the idea. More practical, right?
Definitely a shift in approach.
Yeah.
Okay, this one got everyone talking. Several IAS officers suspended in Kerala. Brings up those All India Services Conduct Rules, something every aspirant should know.
It does. What's unbecoming conduct for a civil servant? That's the question, especially now, social media and all that. Those lines blur between personal and professional life.
Good reminder, as an aspiring officer, you're always under the microscope, even online. What you do matters.
Truth. Okay, international news now. The U.S. election. Trump's back, and India's a little on edge. Trade war worries and all that.
Yeah, those tariffs and tensions from his last term. Can't blame people for being worried. What's the feeling now?
Analysts say could be round two. Tariffs on Indian goods, protecting American jobs. Classic case of one country's politics shaking up global trade.
GSCC stuff right there.
Yes.
Impact of U.S. policies, the whole picture. Okay. Over in Europe, Germany's economy,
Right.
not looking so great. What's going on there?
It's a mix of things. Pandemic hangover, supply chains messed up, and then the energy crisis from the Ukraine war. That's not helping.
Yeah, rough all around.
But some folks are saying it's deeper than that. Germany relies too much on exports, especially to China. Hasn't really embraced all the new tech and innovation as much.
Interesting. Shows that even the strongest can stumble. Good case study for those global trends, how they hit India. Right.
Okay, some regional news now. Pakistan and Bangladesh, first direct cargo ship exchange. What do you make of that?
A sign of thawing relations, maybe? They haven't exactly been buddy-buddy for a while.
That's the thought. Maybe economics can pave the way, get those regional ties warming up.
Always good to see cooperation, that's for sure. Okay, on a more positive note, Italy and India, they're getting along pretty well. New action plan for the next few years.
Yeah, 2025 to 2029, deeper collaboration, everything from defense to trade, technology, energy, the whole package.
India's definitely building those global partnerships.
No doubt. And speaking of partnerships, PM Modi's visit to Guyana, that was a big deal.
First visit by an Indian PM in decades.
Right. And they had that CARICOM summit, too. Really shows India's serious about South-South cooperation. Signed a bunch of MOUs, health, agriculture, digital stuff, even talked about boosting trade and working together on sustainable development.
Building those bridges with the Caribbean. Okay, let's talk climate change. Can't have a current affairs update without it. Copy 29 in Baku. Some progress, some sticking points as always.
That's copy P for you. Big win, though. New climate finance goal. Developed countries pledged at least $300 billion a year by 2035 to help developing nations tackle climate change.
That's significant.
It is. But there was friction, too, that EU carbon border adjustment mechanism, the CBAM.
Right, that's the one that puts a price on carbon in imported goods.
Yeah.
A lot of developing countries are worried about that.
They are. China, speaking for that basic group of nations, said it's discriminatory, could hurt their economies. The EU's saying it's necessary. Got to prevent carbon leakage, industries moving to places with looser rules.
Tough situation, balancing the environment with economic realities. Okay, let's take a break from all the serious stuff for a minute. Some cultural happenings in November, lots of festivals, commemorations, really shows India's diverse heritage.
Yeah, we had Guru Tegh Bahadur's Martyrdom Day, St. Francis Xavier's relics on display in Goa, Manipur's Ningal Chakuba Festival, that's a unique one, then the Bodoland Mahotsav, and even those replicas of the Konark Sun Temple wheels, they installed them at Rashtrapati Bhavan. Lots going on.
It's fascinating. Each one tells a story about India, traditions, history, culture. What's that Ningal Chakuba Festival about? I've never heard of that one.
Oh, it's beautiful. Celebrates the bond between married women and their families. They go back to their parents' homes, get pampered, lots of love from their brothers. It's really sweet.
Sounds lovely. Okay, ready for some science and tech. November was a busy month for innovations and discoveries.
It was. Ultra Enforcement Concrete, that's a new construction material. Scientists at INST developed security inks using nanotechnology. And there's even a new black hole triple system, V404 Cygni, that astrophysicists are all excited about.
Black holes are always cool. What about space? Any news from India there?
ISRO launched their first analog space mission up in Ladakh, simulating what it's like to be in space, prepping for future human missions.
Wow, ambitious. Any other tech advancements that stood out?
Oh, definitely. The India-Kazakhstan titanium venture, that's a big one, boosting production of that strategic metal. Then in the food world, Alulus, a low-calorie sweetener, it's getting popular, could be a game changer.
Interesting. What about connectivity? Any news there?
Yep, CDOT and IIT Roorkee are working on a millimeter wave transceiver. Could be huge for getting 5G to rural India. Then there's this crazy idea, gravity energy storage. Using gravity to store and release energy sounds wild, but it could be a solution for all that renewable energy we're trying to integrate.
Yeah, cutting edge stuff. And of course, we can't forget the race towards 6G technology.
Oh, right. India's in the mix there, aiming to be a leader in the next generation of networks. And there was Operation Dronagiri, all about developing drones, shows India's serious about unmanned systems. Plus, GSAT-20 launched, that's a powerful communication satellite, going to boost broadband and even in-flight connectivity.
That's a lot to take in. And we've only just scratched the surface of November's news. Let's catch our breath and dive into the next batch in part 2.
Okay, so keeping the tech theme going, remember how we talked about getting tech to rural areas? This next one's a great example, the Nemo Drone Didi scheme.
Drone Didi. Okay, I like the sound of that already. Tell me more.
It's all about women in agriculture, empowering them. So they're giving drones to women's self-help groups, SHGs.
Drones. Wow. What will they use them for?
Lots of things. Spraying pesticides, keeping an eye on the crops, even delivering stuff.
That's amazing. Taking traditional farming, mixing it with cutting-edge tech. So smart. Not just innovation for the sake of it, but actually making it useful, accessible.
Exactly.
Definitely some GS2 potential there. Right?
Yeah.
Technology, women's empowerment, agriculture, it all ties together.
Oh, absolutely. Multidimensional. That's the key for the exam, connecting those dots. Okay, moving on. Another scheme. This one's about boosting domestic production of medical devices.
What's the thinking behind that?
Self-reliance. We import a lot of medical devices. This is making more of that stuff here in India. Supporting local manufacturing, skill development, even clinical trials, all happening within India.
Smart. What if there's a global crisis, supply chains get disrupted? We need to be able to take care of ourselves.
Exactly. Resilience. Healthcare, that's a national security issue too, you know?
Absolutely. Okay, data time. Latest animal husbandry stats came out.
Now, why would we care about cows and buffaloes for the UPSC, right?
Yeah, exactly. Help me connect the dots here.
Animal husbandry, it's a big chunk of the Indian economy, especially in rural areas. Livestock numbers, milk production, how much it all contributes to GDP, it matters.
Okay, so those numbers tell a bigger story. Got it. Now, Naresa crochet lace, traditional craft, just got a GI tag.
Big win for the artisans there. GI tag, geographical indication, it's like a trademark, protects their craft, no more knockoffs.
So they get the value they deserve, helps the local economy too, and preserves that cultural heritage.
All of that. Okay, innovation time, Adult Innovation Mission, AM, got an upgrade, version 2.0.
AM 2.0, what's new?
More money, bigger scope, building on what they already started, but taking it further. More adult tinkering labs. Those are innovation spaces for students, more support for startups, and a big push for inclusivity, making sure innovation isn't just for English speakers, getting everyone involved.
I love that. Innovation is a national movement. Okay, sustainability now. New scheme to encourage natural farming.
Right. Natural farming. So it's like organic farming, no synthetic fertilizers or pesticides, but it's more than that.
More than organic. How so?
It's about working with nature, really understanding those natural processes, making the soil healthier, boosting biodiversity. The whole ecosystem benefits.
Holistic approach. That makes sense. Fits in with sustainable development, climate action, all that.
Absolutely. Okay, next up, the National Federation of State Cooperative Banks, NAFSCUB, they celebrated their Diamond Jubilee.
60 years, that's a milestone.
It is, and it reminds us how important cooperative banks are, especially in rural areas. Financial inclusion, that's their bread and butter.
Right.
Giving people access to credit, financial services, the stuff they might not get from regular banks.
Empowering those communities at the ground level.
Exactly. Okay, digital news. India jumped up in the Network Readiness Index 2024.
That's got to be good news, right? More digitally connected, I'm guessing?
It is. It means we're getting better at using tech for economic and social progress. Better infrastructure, more connectivity, more people using digital services, it all adds up.
Digital India, all those initiatives, they're paying off.
Okay,
let's talk about something that often confuses UPSC aspirants, CE and VET. What is it, in simple terms?
CAET, Central Value Added Tax, it's basically a way to avoid being taxed twice in manufacturing. So manufacturers pay tax on the stuff they buy to make their products, but then they get a credit for that tax, lowers their overall burden.
Okay, so it encourages them to produce more, makes them more competitive, stimulates the economy, right?
That's the idea. Okay, next, RBI issued some guidelines. FPIs, those are foreign portfolio investors, they can now reclassify their investments as FDI, foreign direct investment.
Why does that matter? What's the difference?
FPIs, that's short-term money, in and out. FDI, that's more of a commitment, longer term. This is about attracting that stable investment, the kind that sticks around and helps the economy grow steadily.
Long-term vision, that's what we want. Okay, another RBI move, they brought back a lot of their gold from the Bank of England.
Yeah, that got people talking. As part of a global trend, central banks are holding more gold these days, diversifying those reserves, not putting all our eggs in the U.S. dollar basket.
Smart move, hedging those risks, building economic independence.
Precisely. Now, let's talk about something fundamental, parliamentary democracy in India. How are we doing compared to what the Constituent Assembly envisioned?
Hmm, that's a big question. Those Constituent Assembly debates, they were legendary. Yeah, so much intellectual firepower, respectful discussion, really building that foundation for democracy.
And these days, well, sometimes it's a bit more chaotic, right? Shouting, disruptions, not quite the same vibe.
Yeah, not quite. And fewer sittings, too. Less time for actual deliberation. Raises questions about how effective our parliament really is.
It does. Important to understand these challenges, right? For
Yeah.
any future civil servant. Okay, the Supreme Court weighed in on election nominations. Yeah, they clarified. The Election Commission, they can reject a nomination if there's something fishy with the info the candidate provides. Keeping things honest, maintaining the integrity of the process.
Accountability and fairness, that's key.
Yeah.
Okay, another SE ruling, this one about Aadhaar cards and using them as proof of age.
They said, look, Aadhaar's great for ID, but for age, not enough. You need a birth certificate, something official, right tool for the right job.
Makes sense. And speaking of collecting data, the 2025 census is coming up.
Huge undertaking, snapshot of the nation. Who are we, where are we going, all that.
More than just counting heads, it shapes policy, resource allocation, everything.
Exactly. And they're thinking of adding more stuff this time. Migration patterns, transgender population who has access to tech, all important info.
And that data feeds into the delimitation process, right?
Yeah.
Redrawing those electoral
It
boundaries.
does. Keeps things fair, makes sure everyone's represented properly. Plus, that data will be key for that women's reservation bill if it goes through.
Okay, corporate world now. Supreme Court had some words for the National Company Law Tribunal, the NCLT.
NCLT deals with corporate disputes, insolvency cases, all that. The court's saying, look, they're short-staffed, cases are piling up, delays are hurting the economy.
Bottleneck in the system. Got to keep things moving. Okay, media now. Press Council of India, PCI, they've been busy.
PCI, they're like the watchdogs for the print media, making sure everyone plays fair, upholding those ethical standards, protecting press freedom, but also making sure that freedom isn't abused.
It's essential in a democracy, that balance. Okay, back to the U.S. elections. The ripples are still spreading. What should India be watching out for?
Trump's policies, trade, immigration, those are the big ones. Tariffs on Indian goods could hurt our exports, and his immigration policies, they could affect Indian students and professionals in the U.S.
Yeah, it all has an impact. Okay, Middle East now, Israel and Lebanon, still tense, even with that ceasefire.
Ceasefire is fragile, hard to say how long it'll hold. Hezbollah's involved, that complicates things.
Another layer of complexity, for sure. Okay, some positive news. PM Modi's visit to Nigeria, strengthening those ties.
Focus on economic cooperation, security, and cultural exchange. India is looking to build stronger partnerships in Africa. Lots of potential there.
Building bridges, that's always good. Okay, something a little more fun. India might bid to host the 2036 Olympics.
Imagine that. Huge undertaking, but what an opportunity to showcase India to the world. Big investment needed, though. Infrastructure, sports development, the whole 9 yards.
Definitely a boost for India's global image. Okay, back to serious news. Palestine, still a major concern. International Criminal Court issued arrest warrants, Israeli and Hamas leaders.
Underscores how serious the situation is. International community is getting impatient, wants to see some progress towards peace.
Decades of conflict, it's heartbreaking. Okay, diplomacy time. Second India-Australia annual summit happened.
Yeah, those two are getting closer. Definitely a strategic partnership. Trade, defense, climate change, all on the agenda. Indo-Pacific region, that's the key context here.
Shared interests, shared values, makes sense. Okay, APEC summit happened too. Leaders from all over the Asia-Pacific. What was the focus?
APEC, Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, it's all about regional integration, tackling those shared challenges, economic cooperation, trade, climate change, sustainable development, all big topics.
Important region. Got to work together. Okay, India hosted the first ever Global Maritime Conference.
India is a maritime power, big coastline, strategic location in the Indian Ocean. This conference was about putting that front and center, maritime governance, connectivity, cooperation, all that. And that's it for part 2. ready for the final stretch.
Okay, part 3. Let's wrap up this November news marathon.
Sounds good. We were talking about those big conferences, right? Well, the U.S. and India, they had their Indian Ocean dialogue, shows how important that region is for both of them.
It's a geopolitical hotspot these days, that's for sure. What were they focused on?
Keeping things safe and secure, that was the main thing. Maritime security, freedom of navigation, dealing with piracy, terrorism, all that.
Makes sense. Vital trade route. And, well, there's a lot of competition there, too. Different countries vying for influence.
Exactly. Okay, this one caused some waves. Israel decided to ban UNRWA. That's the UN agency that helps Palestinian refugees.
Wow, that's a big move. UNRWA does a lot. Food, healthcare, education for millions of refugees.
Yeah.
What are the consequences going to be?
Hard to say for sure, but a lot of folks are worried. Could make the humanitarian situation even worse. Really highlights how complex that whole Israeli-Palestinian conflict is. Finding a solution seems impossible.
Definitely a sensitive situation. Okay, let's switch gears, talk about India's economic engine, the MSMEs, those micro, small, and medium enterprises.
They're the backbone. That's what they call them. So many jobs contribute a lot to the GDP, and they're big on exports, too.
Yeah, little guys doing big things, but they face a lot of challenges too, right?
Oh, yeah. Getting loans can be tough, lots of red tape, and they have to compete with those big companies. The government tries to help, policies and all that, but there's always room for improvement.
Important to understand that whole ecosystem, how it works, the challenges, the solutions. Okay, automotive industry news, new fuel efficiency standards for vehicles. CAFE norms.
KTEFE, that stands for Corporate Average Fuel Efficiency. Basically, each car manufacturer has to meet a certain target, the average fuel consumption of all the vehicles they sell. These new norms, they're tougher, pushing everyone towards more fuel-efficient, less polluting cars.
Less reliance on fossil fuels, better for the environment. Good for India's climate goals, too.
Definitely. Fits in with the whole electric vehicle trend, sustainable mobility, all that. Okay, some good news for students now. The PM Vidyalaxmi scheme got approved.
Vidyalaxmi, that sounds like something to do with education.
It is. Financial help for students who deserve it, but maybe can't afford higher education. Makes it easier to get loans, more people are eligible, and they even tied it to those NIRF rankings, encourage students to go to good quality institutions.
Fantastic initiative. Investing in people, making sure everyone has a chance. Okay, tough topic now. Overcrowding in prisons, big problem in India.
It is. Terrible conditions, not exactly helping with rehabilitation, is it? We need to find other solutions, maybe not jail time for every minor offense. Speed up those trials, too. And the prisons themselves, they need improvement, better infrastructure.
The justice system, it has to be fair, but it also has to be humane. Okay, how about some good news? The Jeevan Pramayan Initiative, using tech to make life easier for pensioners.
Love this one. Pensioners, they used to have to physically go to a government office to prove they're still alive, get their pension. Now they can do it online.
Saves so much hassle, especially for older folks who might not be able to travel easily. Okay, let's talk about the Constitution for a minute. There was a discussion recently about how it was drafted, the importance of debate, deliberation, all that.
Yeah, those Constituent Assembly debates, they were something else. So many different viewpoints. But they listened to each other, found common ground, built a consensus. That's how you make a strong foundation for democracy.
Not just about the majority. Got to protect those minority rights, too, make sure everyone has a voice. Okay, another discussion. This one about Aadhaar, that unique ID system, and how its role keeps expanding.
Started as a simple ID, now it's used for so much. Raises some concerns, privacy, data security, all that.
Definitely a trade-off. Efficiency versus privacy. Okay, this next one's sensitive. A commission was set up to look into whether Dalits who convert to Christianity or Islam should get scheduled caste status.
Complicated issue. What defines caste? What about religious freedom? How do those affirmative action policies work? Lots to consider.
Okay, let's talk business. Ease of doing business. How's India doing on that front?
What's being done to make things smoother for businesses?
Cutting down on red tape, simplifying procedures, making it easier to operate, attract more investment, boost the economy, all that.
Competition's good, helps everyone in the end. Okay, this next one's tough. Farmer suicides, still a major issue in India. Tragic. Debt, crops failing, market prices all over the place, lack of support, it all pushes them to the brink. We need to do better. Financial help, mental health support, and those agricultural policies. They got to ensure farmers can actually make a living.
They feed the nation, we got to take care of them. Okay, let's talk about the blue economy. That's a term we're hearing more and more these days.
It's all about the oceans, all the economic activity that happens there, fishing, shipping, tourism, even renewable energy. India, we've got that massive coastline, huge potential.
So it's about using the ocean sustainably for development.
Right, right. Fits in with that Sagar vision too, security and growth for all in the region. India's a maritime power, gotta act like one. Okay, this next one's cool. SVSTIC. It stands for Science for Vijayan and Anusandhanik Sanskrit.
Sanskrit and science, how does that work?
India's got this rich scientific heritage. A lot of it's in those ancient Sanskrit texts. SESTIC is about bridging the gap, showing that traditional knowledge and modern science, they're not so different.
Fascinating. Okay, Indian railways, always a hot topic. Lots of reforms happening.
Got to modernize, make it more efficient, financially sustainable, restructuring, new accounting practices, finding ways to raise money. It's a big job.
Making the trains run on time, but also making the whole system work better in the long run.
Yeah.
Okay, last one. Interstate cooperation. That interstate council, they had a meeting.
Important platform, center and states coming together, talking things out, coordinating policies, resolving disputes. India's a diverse country, got to find ways to work together.
Cooperative federalism, that's the key. Okay, one more tech update. New rules for cybersecurity in the telecom sector.
Got to protect those networks. Cyber threats are everywhere. Telecom companies have to report any incidents, and they got to beef up their security.
Everything's connected these days. Cybersecurity is essential. Okay, for all the sports fans out there, WADI, the World Anti-Doping Agency, they updated their list of banned substances.
Level playing field, that's what they're after. Fair competition. Athletes need to know what they can and can't take. Okay, this next one's been controversial. Bulldozer justice. Authorities demolishing buildings that are supposedly involved in illegal stuff.
Yeah, I've seen those videos. Raise some questions, due process, rule of law, all that.
The Supreme Court weighed in, said you can't just demolish things on a whim. Got to follow the rules, make sure you're not punishing innocent people. Okay, back to the political arena. That debate about reserving seats for women in parliament, it's still going on.
Important issue. Representation matters.
Yeah.
Getting more women into those decision-making roles, that's good for everyone.
Absolutely. Okay, last but not least, the UPSC exam itself. Always something to talk about.
It's a challenging exam, that's for sure.
It is, and it keeps changing. Syllabus updates, new patterns, even how they select candidates, it's all evolving. Aspirants, they got to stay on top of it all.
It's a journey, that's for sure. Well, that brings us to the end of our November deep dive. Supreme Court rulings, global summits, new technologies, cultural festivals. We covered a lot. Hopefully it was helpful. Gave you some food for thought for your UPSC prep.
Absolutely. The key is to stay informed, stay curious, connect those dots, and believe in yourself. You got this.
Until next time, keep learning, keep striving. Good luck on your UPSC journey.